Hey everyone, I'm Rather Incoherent, and this is the Amanda Sharpe deck I just finished playing a campaign with on the channel. She was playing as the primary Cluever alongside primary fighter Mandy Thompson. You heard that right, through Return to ForgottenAge. I wanted to see if these Seeker forms of damage were able to sustain themselves and win in a relatively hard campaign, especially one that has a lot of enemies and really taxes those limited resources a Seeker has. Good news, or bad news if you hate Seekers like me, they can. Bad news, terrible news no matter what, but especially if you are a fan of Amanda, one Seeker can't do it alone, so I had to use this occult lexicon constantly. Maybe I only spent 3 experience on it, but I probably spent like at least a fifth of my actions helping fight in some capacity, and that really hampered Amanda. I'm going to move on to a more reasonable experience deck in a second. No one cares about a 65 experience deck that you finish ForgottenAge with, that's nonsense. But before I do, I want to point out that this Amanda deck never got to live the dream. It never played the Red Glove Man, put deduction under it, and investigated 3 times for 9 clues. Never happened. Most of the time, there are only 2 clues at a location because we're in 2-player, and I can't just move for free with Shortcut because I have to explore to find the next location. And it's not like Amanda's going to explore for me. If she goes there, she's going to use deduction with her practice makes perfect and find the clues herself. So every time I ever did the deduction thing with Amanda, at most I used it twice because of the explore mechanics. But I didn't get to do it nearly as often as I normally would have because I was so often preoccupied with playing this occult lexicon. And switching down to a lower experience deck, you can see it actually impacted my deck building a huge amount being in this campaign. I had to upgrade these cryptic writings to afford the occult lexicon, and not only that, I had to upgrade this occult lexicon. This 7 experience that I'm missing is the experience I need to upgrade these skills and have Amanda online. The opportunity cost that Amanda paid in this campaign was massive. She didn't perform anywhere near the level you would expect out of Amanda normally, because she was so heavily impeded by having to pull double duty as fighter and having to prioritize fighting upgrades. A normal Amanda deck wants to just draw a shitload of cards with Unrelenting one turn and duplicate deduction with a Red Glove Man the next turn. This Amanda deck, instead, would frequently draw a bunch of cards with Unrelenting on one turn, the next turn play a million Blood Rights, and then duplicate deductions, but only do it twice instead of 3 times, and then rinse, wash, replete. I was having substantially less deduction value with this Amanda deck than I normally would have. In fact, I discarded deduction with Blood Right many times because the other one was already in my hand, and I knew I didn't have time to play the other deduction before I inevitably redrew it again with the occult lexicon. So, to some degree, I'm talking about how I believe Amanda would be in a normal scenario, because my Amanda didn't perform like you would expect an Amanda to. This is a 40 experience Amanda deck, what you'd expect to finish a campaign with, that looks how you would normally build her. You don't even want the occult lexicon. You want to be built as just pure Cluever, and somebody else can fight, because you're going to get so many clues it doesn't matter as you duplicate these deductions and shortcut around the map. And there are arguments to be made that you shouldn't take the Red Glove Man, you should take an Eon chart, or you should take Eon chart instead of something else here. There's other ways you can build Amanda, it's not just locked into this. But this is still generally the idea behind almost any Amanda deck, and it's got the same problem. The dream is insane. Draw a million cards one turn, get a million clues the next, and you're not failing checks because you've got the Red Glove Man, and even if you do, you're not taking damage because he'll take it before he leaves anyway. The idea here is really straightforwardly powerful. And in the beginnings of campaigns, even without any of this stuff, the thing Amanda does where she's duplicating deductions or promise of powers is still very strong. And Dream Diary is really all you need to be safe defensively until you get to that point. So Amanda does fit together. It all works really well. The problem is to get to this point where you're doing really broken stuff by doing deduction duplication every other turn, every 3rd turn at worst, and being immune to the Mythos deck because of the Red Glove Man takes forever to get online. She has so much experience that she wants that she really does not quickly get to do the thing that you're bringing her to do, the dream that you had when you picked Amanda. My campaign really highlighted just how much Amanda doesn't want to be told to participate with anything other than finding clues. She has a plan, draw cards, duplicate deductions, rinse, wash, repeat. That's the plan. And she really doesn't want to deviate from that plan. And to some degree, that's very detrimental. It means that if a wrench gets thrown into your plan for one of a million reasons that can happen in Arkham Horror, she's going to get worse in a way that other Seekers wouldn't. Harvey's going to spend a turn playing Blood Rights. Amanda is going to be much more inconvenienced than that. I do think she's very strong. Easily still my A+ tier. But she's definitely not the S tier Seeker I thought she was. Before, I always wondered, is she strong enough early on that she can compete with Rex and Mandy? And does she scale up to something so broken that she beats them? And hilariously, I had it completely backwards. I thought that in early games she'd actually be way behind them, and later on in the game, she'd catch up to them and even surpass them. But I'm of the opinion that it takes so much experience to get to this point, that until you get to this point, you're still very far behind them, and even at this point, you aren't that far ahead of them. You really aren't. But at the early game, when she's just duplicating deductions and drawing lots of cards with perceptions on basic investigate checks, that's actually still pretty damn good. She's a real janky, but she's actually not nearly as far behind in the early game as I imagined her to be. But at the end of the day, she's still behind them early on. It takes forever to catch up to them. She needs most of this 39 experience to catch up, and she's arguably even still behind them then. Amanda is strong. She's very strong. She's definitely my A+ tier. But at the end of the day, I just don't feel confident that she's even high in A+. There's a little bit too much jank happening. She has too little going on for her outside of finding clues. And just the amount of experience that she really needs to spend. I understand that like cryptic research and regular man are technically optional, but even if you strip that out, that 18 experience, you're still looking at a 21 experience deck that hasn't bought cryptic research yet. The opportunity cost of playing an Amanda deck is a lot higher than I realized it was. And unfortunately, Amanda, as a result, is a lot weaker than I thought she was. She's still good, but she's not half the investigator I thought she was. I was wondering at some point if she could be the strongest character in the game, and I'm not wondering that anymore. Now I'm wondering if she's actually deserving to be an A+, and I'm pretty sure she is, and she just had a bad showing at ForgottenAge, but that's not what I thought I'd be saying after I played with her. And to quickly show her starting deck, the one where I was like actually shocked, is this. I was really surprised with how well this performed in Scenario 1 of ForgottenAge. It did its job in every respect. It's carried its weight as a fighter, as an evader of vengeance enemies, as a clue finder. It was surprisingly strong. And obviously you wouldn't want Wit and Green or I've Got It Planned in most level 0 Amanda decks, but Mandy's hogging all the good allies, and Wit and Green is all that's left, whereas I've Got It Planned is just necessary. We have 2 Occult Lexicons as our real good damage options. We just need more damage cards. So while this deck was like not the level 0 Amanda deck I would want to have, it did really well. And in a normal campaign, I wouldn't run the Occult Lexicon, or the Wit and Green, or the I've Got It Plans. These would be like Milan's, and the I've Got It Plan would be like Eureka, and the deck would just be much better. I think on the whole, I'm a little bit down on Amanda because of how bad Seekers Only ForgottenAge was for her. Like with Mandy, it showed off her brute force consistency and high draw by allowing her to beat a fighter. But with Amanda, it showed off how easily you can throw a wrench in what Amanda wants to do. She doesn't want to spend her turns playing Occult Lexicon and Blood Rights. She doesn't want to spend her turns exploring instead of cheating out the movement to duplicate more skills. And it really, really shows. I think ForgottenAge specifically is the worst campaign to play Amanda in, funnily enough, now that I've played it. And really, it's a campaign that just disproportionately hurts Seekers more than any other class to begin with, because Seekers are the ones that can cheat out movement. So Explorer hurts them the most, but it hurts Amanda most of all. Because when someone else loses a movement, they lose an action. It's fine. But when Amanda loses a movement, she loses a copy of deduction or perception. And that's not fine. That's a way greater cost than anyone else is paying. I like Amanda. I actually like her more now that I think she's a balanced character and not competing for the top slot in S tier. I feel like maybe I've glossed over some things, but I don't feel like I have much more to say about Amanda. She's very strong, deserves her place in A+, but really, really wants to stick to her plan and doesn't want to interact with the game outside of finding clues. Anyways, I'm going to call it for now. I've been Rather Coherent. I hope you enjoyed this brief video about Amanda Sharpe, and I'll see you in the next one.